Well, good morning, everybody. This is Doug here again. I want to tell you a little story about 1941. 1941, we knew we were going to war. We didn't know when exactly it was going to be, but we figured it wasn't going to be but so long. All my father's brothers and his sister Marion and her husband Barton, Coach Barton was what the boys all called him, and somehow it got translated to Barton, and over time that was his name. Anyway, Uncle Cecil, nicknamed Satch, him and his family lived in Baltimore. Uncle Frank came up from Georgia to be there. Then Uncle Roy, Mom's brother, and Talmadge and Oscar came. It was kind of a big family affair. Everybody knew war was coming, and nobody knew when they'd ever get to see each other again. It could be fighting on American soil. Nobody knew. So they all got together to have a little shindig to meet and talk. 2 weeks later, Mom and Dad had a barn dance in the basement, and all of the Dundalk people who had come there to work in the steel mills from Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and over in some of the middle southern states were invited, and they had a big shindig. But the particular night I'm talking about, they all just wanted to get together and talk old times. Somebody wanted a beer, and Mom never kept any beer around the house. Dad didn't drink, so there wasn't much need for it. They sent my brother, older brother, Charlie, who was old enough to buy beer, they sent him out to buy a couple of jugs of draft beer so everybody could have a drink. And so he left. In about an hour and a half, here he come back, and he had somebody with him. It was a fellow we called Crazy Harry. Everybody in Dundalk knew of him. I don't think anybody knew him personally. Anyway, he was kind of a showman. He went around to nightclubs and put on a little floor show act on Saturday nights and Friday nights, sometimes Wednesday nights if there was then partying going on. Charlie brought him in, introduced him. We all shook his hand, and he sat down. He got everybody's name first, and then he started asking people questions. After reciting all the names, then he went through, pointed to each person, and told quite a bit about them that they hadn't told him. He pointed at my father, and he said, "You are a machinist, Mr. Pollard. You work doing repairs on trains for the railroads in Georgia, and you now work at the Western Electric." Well, he went all the way through the whole bunch of people and told a story about each one of them, and people were mystified. Nobody could figure that out. How in the world, from just their name and a little tiny piece about themselves, did he deduct all of that information? It was really fantastic. And then he brought out some paper and a pair of scissors, and he told Mom to turn her head and look at the wall, and he cut her out a paper doll. He took the paper, put it behind his head, took the scissors behind his head, and cut out her silhouette. Well, then he took my dad and took a piece of paper and folded it all up, put it behind his head, and he cut out his silhouette. And then he grabbed the ends of the piece of paper and pulled it, and it all unfolded, and there were 6 silhouettes of my father. He told some jokes, and we all laughed, and it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. Everybody, a couple of the Pollards, somewhat joke tellers too. joined in and told a few jokes too. And he thanked him very kindly, said that was a couple more he'd use on stage when he got a chance. Anyway, when he was cutting out the paper dolls, he started a kind of a little sing-song. It said, I don't wear no underwear, and I don't wear no women's drawers, around and around in a wagon wheel, and it went on and on. I don't remember all the words to it, but and we all died laughing. It was a great time. Finally, it was time for him to go to the Hollywood Inn. He had a little show to put on there, so we all threw some money out on the floor for him, change. And he picked up, I don't know, $20 or $30 or something. And so Charlie left, took him to the Hollywood Inn, and in a little bit he come back. And he said, I told him everybody's name and all about them so that he could do his little thing and tell you who you were and what you were all about and all that. So the little bit you told him had nothing to do with what he told you, because he already knew all about you. And everybody laughed. They thought it was funny. But when Crazy had gotten up, he threw some pennies on the floor. He said, I don't take pennies. And of course I was a kid. So after he went out, I went over to pick the pennies up, put them in my pocket, and they were bottle cap corks. He had taken the corks out of bottle caps, and that was part of his stick, as they said back then. Anyway, it was a good time, and it was a sad time. People were sad that knew that we were going to war and young men were going to die, and that we might be bombed, and that they might be fighting right in the middle of my hometown, Dundalk. And because we were on the Chesapeake Bay and submarines could come up in there anytime they wanted to. Everybody was really worried about it. But anyway, on this particular night, we all had a good time. And so if you run into Crazy Harry somewhere, get him to sing you a little song. He'll do it. All right, folks. Bye-bye. Doug here.